Hello and welcome to another edition of the Consumer Quarter. I'm Simon Palin. On the show today, Australians are said to be the biggest users of social media in the developed world.
I wouldn't say that I'm addicted, but it would be quite strange to not have it.
And local retailers are warning of job losses as the industry struggles, but not everyone is sympathetic.
International retailers are definitely one up on Australian retailers and understanding what the customer wants, engaging them.
But first, when it comes to household budgets these days, it's thought women are more likely to be pulling the purse strings than men. And now there is proof. And it's not just that women are often better at paying the bills, the global financial crisis has also played a role. It's a touchy topic, often blamed for breaking up relationships. Some couples barely discuss it.
Funnily enough, we're just embarking on a new relationship, so this is what we need to talk
Tell the
about.
world.
Even though men make more money on average than women, new research shows it's women who are more likely to decide what to do with it.
Certainly in our house, I do a lot of forward planning and make sure we've got the money for different things.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the case in our relationship, is it?
What? I'm not in charge?
You're not in charge of the finances, you're in charge of everything else.
Men think they're in charge, but women are always in charge.
What we found was that 75% of women are either taking all control or sharing control of financial decision making, compared to only 69% of men.
Women are taking a bigger role in the financial decisions made across Australian households.
Researchers say the global financial crisis and the need to save money has been a big factor.
Women are more likely to save, and certainly the evidence tells us they're doing it much more so than men.
Demographers say the growing empowerment of women has taken place over the last 30 years. These days, young females are more likely to have a university degree than young males, and women are putting their skills into practice with the household finances.
It's natural progression, really. Women are so clever.
As some men say, you can't live with them, you can't live without them. And as it happens, an increasing proportion of household finances are being spent on looking good, especially by older females. Despite cautious consumer spending overall, Australians are splashing out on things like Botox, lap band surgery, fake tans and fitness. Researchers at IBIS World expect Australians to spend a staggering almost $7 billion this financial year on perfecting their personal appearance. That's an increase of 19% from last year. Well, there's no doubt Australians have a soft spot for social networking. On Twitter, we send 5,000 tweets per minute, according to a recent survey. And early this year, a separate study showed Australians are the biggest users of social media in the developed world. Despite this, many local corporations are still approaching social media with trepidation. For more on this, I spoke to technology analyst Ross Dawson.
One of the most interesting things is not just that Australians are the biggest users of social networks in the world, but we've actually come from behind. So a few years ago, Australians were behind in uptake of social networks, and we have become the most heavy users of social networks. Perhaps part of the reason is that we are very gregarious, yet we also look for others to follow. We don't want to be the only ones. So once social media got a critical mass, everyone else piled on board, and we were both able to speak with ourselves and with the million Australians who are travelling overseas or living overseas, to be able to keep in touch with our many friends who are distant.
So is it because Australians are spread out all over the world, or is there anything else about our psyche or the way we are that makes us more prone to use social media?
It seems that Australians are very gregarious, that we are inclined to have conversations, to chat, to gossip, possibly more than some other people. And as such, the coming of social networks has allowed us to express that in a very obvious way in terms of the time that we spent and the way in which we engage with our friends, both close by, who we're going to catch up with for a drink in the evening, or those who are in different cities or countries.
Okay, but it's interesting though, because Australian corporations and retailers have been fairly slow to embrace social media, haven't they?
Australian corporations are significantly behind Australian consumers in the uptake of social media. So this is a challenge and an opportunity for Australian organisations to not just use social media in how they communicate with their customers, but also in engaging internally to be able to get better collaboration and communication inside organisations and to attract talented young people who want to engage in a dynamic work environment.
Okay, and speaking of a work environment, do you think some companies are worried that staff might be wasting too much time on things like Facebook and Twitter in the office?
When Facebook first became prominent in Australia, many organisations banned Facebook. And a large proportion of them has since taken off their bans on Facebook, because Facebook and other social networks are ways in which people connect with their peers, connect potentially with customers, connect with people that are creating value for their organizations. Their own personal social networks often allow them to do their jobs better. So there are some situations where Facebook can be a productivity drain, it's a distraction, yet in many cases it's something which can facilitate people in doing their job better, adding more value to the organization.
Okay, Ross Dawson, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
And like many corporations, some older Australians see Facebook as a 21st century challenge. But rather than ignoring social media, parents, teachers and youth workers are being urged to embrace it. Here's the ABC's Linda Hunt.
For many high school students, Facebook is a way of life.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think I know one of my friends that doesn't have Facebook.
Young people today are born into Facebook, and we are very much immigrants coming into Facebook.
A forum in Hobart explored ways to help parents, teachers and social workers become more Facebook savvy.
How do you use it to engage young people? In terms of, school, in terms of accessing services.
I think it starts with being positive about the space for a start. If you're negative about it, your children are far less likely to talk with you about that space.
Many schools restrict access to social media, but one Hobart High School has taken a different approach. Up to a dozen teachers use Facebook as an educational tool.
We recognise that Facebook's a standard part of communication for young people today, and we felt that rather than restrict access, which was futile, that we really should embrace it.
Schools don't necessarily have a responsibility to make sure it's used appropriately. I really believe they do have a responsibility to start educating about Facebook.
Issues surrounding safety, cyberbullying and privacy are of concern for those working with young people, as is the amount of time spent on Facebook.
It's pretty time consuming. You can spend hours on there if you get sucked into it.
I wouldn't say that I'm addicted, but it would be quite strange to not have it.
And the message for everyone working with young people, it's time to face up to Facebook.
It is the main form of communication, and my role is to communicate with young people.
A brave new cyber world.
And speaking of Facebook, don't forget you can stay in touch with the Consumer Quarter on Facebook. Search for the Consumer Quarter page and click like if you want to be kept up to date. Well, fashion retailers certainly have plenty to worry about at the moment. One of the country's oldest clothing retailers, Fletcher Jones, has been placed into administration. Part of the problem for the local chains is the number of big foreign stores setting up shop here. Amid a flurry of teenage girls and prices low enough to make competitors weep, a major UK fashion retailer opened its doors in Melbourne today.
Here we go, 1, 2, 3.
It's the second recent cut-price foreign fashion giant to come down under after a Spanish chain opened in April. Many iconic Australian clothing retailers are struggling to compete. Jeans label Bettina Liano went into administration earlier this year, and now, after almost a century in business, Fletcher Jones has followed suit.
As you can appreciate, we've only been in there for 24 hours, so we do have a lot of things to do.
Recently, David Jones and the Just Group, which owns chains like Just Jeans and Portmans, have announced big profit downgrades. Analysts say some Australian retailers need to lift their game.
International retailers are definitely one up on Australian retailers, and understanding what the customer wants, engaging them.
But industry groups say local bricks and mortar retailers are more a victim of circumstance. They blame a high Australian dollar and a wealth of big overseas shopping websites for luring consumers away.
Online's a big issue, it's going to be much bigger, but there are a whole lot of other problems for local retailers, whether it is the simple operational cost of doing business or the fact that Australian shoppers are now so conservative and unwilling to spend.
That's Margie Osmond there. And some of the big retailers say if the Christmas and New Year period isn't a successful one, some retail employees could be out of a job in early 2012.
There are a number of retailers that are going out of business. So, if that continues at the rate that's been happening over the last 12 months, then You know, 2012 is not going to be a great year.
Retailers are the biggest employers in the country, and if retailers don't have a good Christmas and don't have the right level of sales, then that's what comes under threat in the new year.
That was the former David Jones boss, Mark McInnes there, who incidentally has taken some pot shots at his successor, Paul Zara. Twice now since his departure, Mark McInnes has said Paul Zara has overseen a slump in DJ's profits and that he needs to take responsibility for it. David Jones' sales plunged more than 11% in the 3 months to September, compared to a much smaller fall of 3.5% at rival department store Myer. Paul Zara has responded, saying the comments are a shame and adding that all DJ staff are giving it their best shot. And finally, as many of the department stores battle to find their feet, smaller retailers are trying to bring consumers back to traditional shopping strips. A group of them are getting together to take on the big shopping centres and the internet.
It's the time of year we take to the shops. And for people who prefer the suburban main drag to a shopping centre mall, 'tis not the season for a shopping trolley.
We much prefer the shopping strips to the malls. They're a little bit impersonal.
There's a lot of restaurants, coffee shops, shops like this.
But it's the health of the shopping strips themselves that concerns Main Street Australia's Nicole Maslin. She's plotting a way forward with detailed research and lobbying.
They've really got great connections to the local community, so it's important that you have active, vibrant main streets.
Main Street Australia has already taken a hard look at Victoria's retail landscape. Its research shows 41% of the state's shopping revenue comes from strips like this, which, it's said, employ 13% of the total workforce. Tony Christakakis runs a long-established menswear shop in Melbourne's fashionable Chapel Street. He says any shopkeeper with too much debt is struggling.
Discounters have discounted each other out of business and made themselves more vulnerable to global players.
And then there's the global threat of internet shopping. That's something Chapel Street retailers are trying to overcome with this fancy collective website. But
they haven't gone to that next step of actually being able to purchase from that website, but it's got to come.
And if it does come, Australian main streets may become virtually available to international shoppers as well.
That's the ABC's Jeff Waters there. And that's all for this edition of the Consumer Quarter. Thank you for joining us. If you've got any story ideas or any feedback, please get in touch on Twitter @Simon Palin. And I'll see you next time.